Good morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, we hear from members of the Alabama Poor People's Campaign. The organization is working to successfully achieve the goals of the national organization here in Alabama to change our nation's moral narrative. The Alabama Poor People's Campaign is working daily to finish the work that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and many others called for, a revolution of values in America. They sought to build what they call a broad fusion movement that could unite poor and impacted communities across the country. Now, you may remember that Dr. King was in Memphis, Tennessee back in April of 1968 to support the striking sanitation workers. Their name, the organization says, is a direct cry from the underside of history. Today, the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, has picked up this unfinished work. From Alaska to Arkansas, the Bronx to the border, they say that people are coming together to confront the interlocking evils. The organization says that they understand that as a nation, we're at a critical juncture, that we need a movement that will shift the moral narrative, impact policies and elections at every level of government, and build lasting power for poor and impacted people. The Poor People's Campaign is asking Americans, if you believe it's time to rise, to join them. Our guest this morning on Perspectives, James Jackson. He's a community activist and member to the Alabama Poor People's Campaign Coordinating Committee. And also with us today, Alex Jerome Wofton, but better known as Huggy Bear DuPoit. He's known worldwide as a catalyst for evolutionary social change. Well, after a quick break this morning, we'll talk with our guests, James Jackson and Huggy Bear DuPoit, about the Poor People's Campaign organization, its national call for moral revival, and the demands of its social justice movement. Perspectives continues in just a moment. And welcome back to Perspectives. This morning we're talking about the Alabama Poor People's Campaign. Our very special guest this morning, Mr. James Jackson and Huggy Bear DuPoit. They are both here this morning to talk about the organization and the history of it, as well as what's going on now today in Alabama. I guess as we first start off, why don't we both give us an opportunity to talk about how you got interested in the campaign and how you got involved in the campaign.
Well, thanks for having us, first of all. Well, you know, me being poor, I wanted to join a campaign that had a voice for my concerns. My friend by the name of Adrian Edwards was telling me about the movement last year when there was called for the national call for the moral revival in Washington, D.C. I said, yeah, that'd be something interesting for me to experience. And I went there, and it was more than what I bargained for. You know, people from 45 other states collaborating with them for the same cause and solidarity for, you know, to end voters suppression and, you know, this minimum wage being more, because the cost of living is going up by the day, but the wages are staying, you know, stagnated, you know, at the same level for years. So, you know, that was one of the things that made me passionate about this movement.
And Huggy, now you not only been involved in organizations, but you as a poet, you're known to speak.
Well, I try to
speak to the subject matter, to the cause, to the issue. How did you see this as something that you wanted to lend your gifts and talents to?
Well, it kind of goes really to your first question. You know, typically when we have these community-oriented events, you see the same faces. And whether it be the Juneteenth, Martin Luther King celebrations, and I always saw this one elderly white man at all these events, and we were marching from the community center where we normally go into Pritchard City Hall, and we struck up a conversation, and then he's been educating me and mentoring me ever since, because, you know, I came from a whole similar but yet different philosophy when it came to a lot of this stuff. And basically with the education that he gave me, it allowed me to incorporate it within my poetry and just take it wherever I go, because it kind of changed me as a person, because I always thought, you know, to try to do something about these issues, but I had the wrong approach. And joining the Alabama Poor People's Campaign has given me direction, along with, a lot of new ideas to, kind of alleviate some of these problems.
Why don't we just take a quick flashback, 1968, April. Dr. King was in Memphis for what purpose? And it was not just about civil rights.
Well, Martin King was getting to the point where it was going from the civil rights to human rights. Our races collaborating together who was going through poverty, especially here in the South. And it ruffled a lot of feathers, because, once you hit someone's pockets, especially a oppressor, they're gonna have to do something about it. A lot of people believe Martin Luther King Jr. was killed because he was trying to advocate for the common working middle class man. And he went to Memphis to help those going on strike so they can get better wages, a better working environment. And the powers that be probably was like, no, we can't let this happen. So Dr. Martin King is I guess you could say, orchestrator of the movement. And in 2017, they revised it, the Poor People's Campaign, and now it's in 45 states, and Alabama is one of the states. So we are here to carry the legacy on of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with the Poor People's Campaign.
Most of us in the media and where you all have been involved in the campaign, we can talk about the things that we see need to be corrected. Talk about some of the areas where the campaign sees that you want to bring change. We're talking about minimum wage, and one of the things for people to have a livable wage.
Yeah.
And it's something that we hear a lot about today. Talk about some of those points of what the campaign wants to see changed.
Well, initially back in '67, when Dr. Martin Luther King started the organization, there were basically like 3 pillars. It was, and those the issues of the day at the time. It was the war going on, so they were talking about the military-industrial complex and what it does. Also, systemic poverty, and also he wanted to deal with systemic racism, because those were the major issues of that day. So basically, when the Poor People's Campaign was revitalized in 2017 by Reverend William Barber and Reverend Theo Liz Harris, they basically took those same principles and we added on a couple more. So the other 2 that we speak to today as well is ecological, basically ecological devastation, what's going on with the climate in our planet. And also we want to speak to the Christian nationalism and the ramifications of that and how it's affected our politics and the way we do things.
So as we look at it from the national standpoint, Alabama has some of the same issues to deal with.
Yeah, been issues that's been going on for decades, even centuries. The House just passed that if you help someone with their absentee ballot, it's a felony.
Yeah.
And I feel in my heart that's unconstitutional. And Alabama, they still have this Constitution from 1901 that still has racial slurs in them and everything. I mean, it's been time for a change. And that's what the Poor People's Campaign is all about. It's a movement to take the proper measures to make sure that change and hold those accountable to make these changes.
No, I'm sorry. And when you think about historically, even from back in Dr. Martin Luther King's day, we've always had white allies in our movement, whether it be the Schwarman Goodmans, the Viola Louisa. We've had our white allies that were deep in the movement. But with the Poor People's Campaign, what he was doing, he was basically taking that and putting it on steroids. Let's not just have allies. Let's just show poor people of all colors and races why you need to be a part of this movement and why you need to be in this fight as well. And that's basically what we're doing in modern day age with the movement. We're letting people know it doesn't matter, what color you are, what religion you subscribe to, your gender identification, your sexual orientation. Everybody just wants to have a decent place to live, send their kids to good schools so they can get a quality education, good, decent health care. And you know, these are things. These are not rights for just people who got money. It should be a right for everyone, and that's what we're letting people know. It's human rights.
So how do you go about affecting some of those changes in Alabama as relates to the voting? Because we look at the percentages in the legislature, and it's very difficult for Democrats as well as some of the other subgroups in there to get anything accomplished because of the numeric situation.
Well, you know, you have a lot of gerrymandering going on. You have voter suppression, which we talked about. And they're trying to do everything they can to hold Alabama still a red state. They want to hold that power by any means necessary. And I just want to make it a point that we should go out and vote, because we are very underrepresented. We are not fairly represented in this state, in this city, in this county. So we, you know what I'm saying, people who look like me should go out and vote so we have fair representation.
And when you think about it, just get back to your point, just locally, the last election cycle, we had 200,000 registered voters that didn't even bother to come out. And it seems like it's a sense of apathy. I don't know if it comes from just we don't feel our vote counts or matter, or just lack of education about the issues. It's like people don't even bother to come out. And Alabama Poor People's Campaign, we want to reach out to those people. And we want to reach out to everybody. But there's a reason why 200,000 people in this county didn't even bother to come out and vote.
Let's hold on that point. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about that. And those percentages are just very disappointing when you look at the numbers. We're going to talk more with our very special guests from the Alabama Poor People's Campaign in just a moment when Perspectives continues. And welcome back to Perspectives. Our very special guest this morning, Mr. James Jackson and Huggy Bear Report. We're talking about the Alabama Poor People's Campaign. We were talking about the voting percentages, and we get excited whenever we get close to 50%, but that's terrible when you think about the important table, the things that are on the table as far as the issues that we're voting on, and you don't have the full participation. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in that percentage there who would like to have a fair wage and have a housing situation to be where they are very pleased with that. A lot of points there that are being not addressed. So how do you motivate people to come to the voting polls?
That's like the $1 million question. It's like pulling teeth. I tell you, you try to advocate as to tell people how important voting is to make their a better quality of life for them. Because now, you know, Alabama, their minimum wage is still $7.25. That's unacceptable. You got to work 82 hours just to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. And
those aren't cheap anymore.
No, they're not. They're going up by the day.
Yeah.
The housing is even bad, so
Yeah, so, you know, we try to motivate them by saying, hey, there's a better way. It's very simple. It's very simple, and it's free. Go out and vote. You know, research these politicians, because they see we don't vote. You know, the people that's in power now, there's politicians. They're gonna pass any kind of law or whatever. You know, they don't vote, so we're gonna do what we want to do.
No participation there.
We have in the Poor People's Campaign, we have a mantra. And it's called Time to Do More. And more is an acronym. It stands for Mobilize, Organize the People, Register the People to Vote, and Educate the People. And so we basically, those are our principles that when we reach out to people, those are the things we're trying to do. We are a nonpartisan organization. We speak to policies and not politics. So it's like, we want to just get you the information where you can make an informed decision, because most people are not making an informed decision when they're voting. They're voting on wedge issues or that person looks good in the suit or whatever reason they may have, and they're voting against their own. They're voting against their own self-interest. So we feel like if we can get the people the right education, they'll make it a more informed decision. They'll make it better for everyone. So
now, with this being a state campaign organization, are we hearing better things happening in other cities in the state? Or I know we've got new mayors elected in both Montgomery and Birmingham recently. So you see that the energies of success in other parts of the state are helping you here in this area?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
You know, to a degree, it could be better.
But we try to move in unison. Like, all right, each state, the 45 states that are presently have chapters of Poor People Campaign. Each state has three tri-chairs. These are our three leaders. Ours are Reverend Foster out of Birmingham, Wanda Bragg out of Montgomery, and locally here in Mobile, Reverend Tony Allgood, which is the old guy I was mentioned earlier.
Right.
And he's one of the tri-chairs, and they get together and they coordinate with each other. Myself and Mr. Jackson are coordinators as well. So if they have an issue, we have an issue. It's about unity. So we go to Selma, we go to Montgomery, we do what we call direct actions in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King, nonviolent direct actions. So we may go march on the Capitol, we may go set up on the Capitol steps and march, but we do it in a nonviolent way. And like I said, we're not necessarily an organization, we're a movement. So if your movement has these type of principles and espouse to those nonviolent principles, then we're right there in that fight with you, and we invite you to come along with us. So we're trying to build a foundation of all like-minded organizations that are trying to make change, and that's the only way it's going to get done. So we go all over the state, and they come to us too.
Okay, that's good. So there's a statewide unison of people coming, give you more support because somebody's having success in other areas. Right?
And even out of state, like we've had several direct actions recently where a whole bunch of us left Mobile, went to Jackson, Mississippi, helped them with their water situation with their crisis a few months ago, which is, as far as I can remember, is still going on. So we try to go where we're needed, so to speak.
Now, you mentioned earlier Bishop Barber, and he is sort of the face of the organization now on a national standpoint. Has he been to Alabama with all the different things going on in other parts of the country? Has he had a chance to come to Alabama?
Several. I believe one time I know for sure because I opened up for him. We were at Stewart Memorial Church right off Martin Luther King off the Avenue. And he came and spoke. It was a very powerful event. It was just prior to the pandemic going full blast. It was kind of like right when it started. But he hadn't been back since, but he will be. He comes to Selma every year. I was just open up for him in Selma not too long ago for the Jubilee, for the Bridge March.
So he really brings a spotlight to the issues for the organization.
Dynamic speaker.
Yeah, he's very passionate about the movement.
Yeah, and as well as Reverend Theo Liz Harris as well. She's just so knowledgeable and just dynamic with with their speaking and the way they can just give it out to the people. When people ask me what church I go to, I'm at the Poor People's Campaign, and Reverend William Barber is my pastor.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And also,
and Reverend Allgood locally too.
And Caroline,
Miss Caroline Foster, yes, a beautiful spirit.
Yeah, she's a beautiful spirit. She's like one of the organizers and everything. And she reaches out and makes sure everyone is good and gives us information consistently.
So when you look at the organization and someone who's watching today, they see this as one of the areas that they want to give their time and energy to. What is it available for them to do with the campaign and the movement?
Well, they can join at poorpeoplescampaign.com. There's education and literature about the movement, and they can also join by putting their information on. Just go to poorpeoplescampaign.com.
If you put exactly what you see on the screen, that Alabama Poor People's Campaign, you go on Facebook or IG, the information will come up. We have QRC codes where you can take you right to the website where you can kind of see the information for yourself. And numbers don't lie. And as far as joining us, like I said, we are an inclusive movement. If you're about our principles, we welcome you to join. We put out everything we're having. A lot of times we have direct actions right here locally. We'll put that information out on the Facebook pages, on my page as well, Alex Jerome Lofton or Huggy Bear the Poet, wherever you feel. You can go to my page. I'm putting information out for the Poor People's Campaign almost daily. So
when you look at, there is a place for everybody who wants to see this type of moral revival take place in this country. There's a place for them to participate right here in Mobile.
Absolutely. If you want to help out the movement, we are open arms. Any other grassroots organization that's like-minded, we all need the help. We got to help each other, you know what I'm saying, get together and help each other, because it's some trying times right now. You got all this crime going up, well, because there's a lack of resources in the community. And it's deliberately done systematically, you know, to wipe out a certain type of people, you know, genocide. So, you know, Poor People's Campaign, we advocate against that. We just want a better quality of life for our people. We have the right to live.
Well, gentlemen, we thank you both for coming and sharing today. And of course, we're going to show that information for those who want to reach out to you. And there we go, for the poorpeoplescampaign.org is the website. And there's the email address as well as phone number and Facebook. Huggy Bear, quickly give yours again too.
It's Huggy Bear the Poet. That's Hugggy Bear, and spelled "the" ebonically. D as in dog, A as in apple, then poet, P-O-E-T. So that's Huggy Bear the Poet. You had Gmail, that'll get you my email. Add a little $sign in front to get you my Cash App.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you both
yeah,
so much for being with us. And of course, reach out to the information. Have a great day.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.